Okay, we're back. It's COMP397 and it's week 11, lesson 11, part 2, right, of this series. And in part 2, what we're doing is I want to make this phaser demo work. And what I'd like to try and do is build a simple first level of MailPilot, right? Because we've done MailPilot, so we understand MailPilot, right? Let's build the scrollable ocean with phaser. Right? We should be able to do that because it's just a bitmap. What we need to do to understand what the bitmap is, because it's a bitmap, is understand how phaser works. Now, it's not much different than CreateJS. It still uses objects and all that kind of stuff. And we've already created a game class, which we called Simple Game, right? But I wouldn't call it Simple Game. I would call it Game, right? So this is the first change that I would make. Let's call our, and we're in our phaser boilerplate. That's what I'm looking at right now. And again, as I said, locally is if I look at GitHub for a second, if I go to github.com, and if I look at Centennial College, if I look down here where I got a phaser boilerplate, this is the one I'm looking at that I worked hard on, right, to make work, right? So that all works now for sure. So please download this one to start off with for phaser. Okay, cool. So that's the one I want, but I can't use this one because that's actually my phaser boilerplate. So let's rename this thing so it's something that's relevant to what we're doing, right? So I'm going to rename this thing by clicking this off, actually getting out of our stuff here, and renaming this phaser. We'll call it phaser MailPilot. No, it's calling me. Phaser pilot. How about phaser pilot? There we go, phaser pilot. COMP397 phaser pilot instead of phaser MailPilot. And we'll go in here. We'll create a new repository for this. So go into this one, and I'll just do a new repository. And we'll call this thing under Centennial College. We'll call it phaser pilot. COMP397 phaser pilot. So we know it's phaser with MailPilot. Kind of rhymed there. This has got to be our hello world, right? Now, because we've done it so many times. So I've got this piece. Let us, now that I've done this, I'm going to go to my phaser pilot. I know that there's a couple things I need to do here to change. So I'm going to bring up a terminal window, and just to clean it up, because I know I have already a repository here, I'm going to kill the repository that it already has, or else it'll mess up. So go in there. And I want to look at my all and notice that I have a git repository and a git ignore. I want to get rid of my git repository, so I'm going to say remove -rf. I think I might have to do sudo remove -rf .git. So I know how I can get rid of it. And if I go -all, there's no more git. That's good. So now I'm going to do a git add or a git init. So I'll reinitialize the Git repository with an empty repository. I need to do that because the other repository was for the phaser boilerplate. And if I was to upload it, it would upload it to the phaser boilerplate, and I don't want that. It would mess me right up. So I have to do this. I have to clean my Git up, basically. All right. Okay. Next piece. I'm going to do git add dot, and then git. Might as well do all the stuff in here. Git commit -m initial commit. So I've done all that work. And then once I've done all this, stuff, I'm going to go into here and grab this remote piece, and then go back to here, paste it. So I don't want to type that in, and then git push -u origin master. And that's going to push it up to that little slot we just made, right in here. Yeah, so this is phaser pilot, right? So that way it has the latest version of the stuff. Plus, it's nothing to do with my phaser boilerplate. Won't mess me up. Okay, yay. Now we're going to pull this in. So we're going to go here, and we don't have a phaser pilot, so I'm going to kind of kill this one because I don't need that anymore, and just pull this in here. So that's my new phaser pilot stuff. So this is like a clean version of the stuff we're doing for our friend Jay. Okay, so let's test it to make sure it works, just like as is, and I'll show you what it does. So we'll say, first we'll open a terminal, and we'll run it as a little HTTP server. This is not a node. server. So we'll run this like this, and we'll say localhost 8080 to test it. So localhost 8080 to test that phaser that it works. And we get this phaser, right? If I refresh, let's make sure we refresh, we get this little phaser thing. Yeah. You guys should get this too. Do you get this? Please test it, because if we can't work together unless you do this. And I need your help, because we have to look at the API to make this go, right? I know a couple things about phaser that I remember from when it was first came out. One is it has state machine built in, so I don't have to do any of the state machines by myself. The other thing I know about phaser is I can always do a game.add to add stuff to the game, like to add things into the stage and all that kind of stuff, right? So I know those are the kind of things you can do. So let's go into my core scripts where I have my reference to my game and realign this so it doesn't say simple game, it just says game. That's our kind of our game reference, right? So that's a new thing, and we'll instantiate here inside our, when it says Windows on load, we're not going to do a Windows on load method in our game. This is our main game function. We're going to call it something like, we'll have a start, something like that, or game start JavaScript file that's going to be in our, kind of in our root somewhere, right? Or it could be somewhere in core, but it's going to kick off. Maybe we'll call it boot or something like that, and it'll boot up our game, right? Because this Windows on load has got a class that's in here. This game class shouldn't be in here, right? This game class almost is like our first level, if you want. Like we can actually rename this thing level 1 or play or something, right? Which is more likely what it should be. So in for this?
Yeah, for this one, any time it says phaser, it's
okay, make sure you downloaded my stuff?
Yeah.
All right, so that means that something's up with your TypeScript, because your TypeScript version is not the same version as me or something. You guys seeing the same problem? No.
What's the problem?
He doesn't see the phaser namespace.
Yeah, I can't get phaser working at it.
It won't work at all, it won't even run?
I just see a white screen on localhost, and when I look in the console,
Even when you download my version?
Yeah.
Phaser pilot.
The server responded with a status of 404.
Yeah, it's not finding any of the files.
That's a problem. Because it's finally for me, right? Did you guys run HTTP server?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I'll come around.
That's not finding it.
All right, two things before we get there. I'm gonna let's before I upload and get the update, I'm gonna go into scripts. I'm gonna say a new folder, and we're gonna call this new folder. This is really a states, if you will. This our states folder. Instead of states, I'm gonna call this, just to make it different. I'm gonna call this thing because the whole game is what we're playing here. We'll call it scenes, just to make it different, because it's not called scenes. It's called states in phaser, and I don't want to make a mess with the namespace. So it's called scenes. It's under scripts, okay? And inside of our scenes, we're going to make this new one called the game scene, right? So we're going to say new file, and we're going to call this game.ts. There it is, game.ts. And we're going to take that core library and rip it apart. This game.ts here and game.ts here are two different things. We're going to get rid of all this, keep our reference, right? And go into my game.ts file and paste. But we have to put this inside of a scene. So we're going to say one of these. We're going to say module, right? And we're going to call it scenes, our scenes module, instead of our states module. And inside there, we're going to put this class. We're going to take this class, cut it out, and put it inside there. And we're going to export the class game, right? And we're going to see if we can reformat our code so it looks nice. So we've got a preload in our constructor. We have this thing called game. We're going to redo this in a second. We have our constructor called that calls the game, and our preload, and then our create. We're going to fix this up so it doesn't do any of this stuff. Okay. And then inside of our game.ts file now, we can't call game, right? We're going to say this. I want to make an iffy, right? Which is always the way to go, right? So an iffy is a self-executing anonymous function, right? Where we're going to say function, and then what we're going to do is we're going to send in, we're going to self-execute the function with this kind of syntax. Now you guys have seen this before, yeah? And we're going to take, instead of the window on load, we don't need the window on load anymore. So I'll never do the window on load event. That makes no sense, ever. I'd rather just do this, right, and put it inside here. So I'm encapsulating it into its own namespace. This var game is equal to game. And it's not game, it's var game is of type scenes, right, which we have to add in to our thing, dot game, right? Var scenes.game is equal to new scenes.game. Okay, now it won't work because I'll tell you right now, we don't have scenes inside of our files. So let's add this game scene. Scenes game is part of our index.html. So in our index.html, before we do our core game, we need our scene. So we're going to say script source is equal to, and then you guys see if you get it afterwards. Okay, I'll find what the problem is, which is scripts, and we're going to say scenes, which is inside of our scripts file, scenes, and then game.js, right, and then script, right, and I will transpile. Okay, once I've done that, I need to make a reference to my scene here. So my reference path is my tsd.d.ts. I need that, and that's all the stuff I need for there. And then I'm going to go 3 forward slashes, and then we have to establish our reference path, right? That's equal to my, because we're in my core, I got to go up one and down into scenes. So up one and down into scenes, and then I got to say game.ts. And the good thing is it will check to see if that exists, which it does. Game.ts. So now that's part of our scene, and I'll transpile. When I transpile, it recompiles our reference as well. Okay, cool. So now I have access to my scenes, and if everything goes well, if I've done everything correctly, then in my when I run my game, my core game, which is going to be running, notice here in my index.html, it's going to, once it hits line 21 in my index.html, it's going to self-execute. It's going to run that self-executing anonymous function that's going to kick off my game.js file. Notice that they're the same file. It says game.js, game.js, because I've called them the same. My core scene is game.js. My scene is game.js, but my core script is also game.js. I'm allowed to do that because they're two different game.js's, and they have two different namespaces. To see what those are, just to see that, I'm going to go back into our core and I'll look at our TypeScript, our JavaScript for that. See, this is what it looks like on the JavaScript side. It's identical. So TypeScript and JavaScript on this side is the same. The only thing is, it doesn't have a type. And the same thing goes with the scene. If I go to JavaScript, this is what you actually see: var scenes. And it says, uh-oh, look, it says duplicate identifier scenes, right? That's what I get. So that could cause a problem, but I don't see how that scenes is an identifier. So leave it as is what I always say. This is the JavaScript side. I'm not trying to look at it with TypeScript, because scenes is already defined on the TypeScript side, and I'm looking at something to give me errors, but really there is no error. Okay, so let's see. So if I've transpiled everything, it should work. I'm going to go back to here and refresh. And if everything goes well, then I still get the symbol. And to check this and to see what it is, to make sure what we're getting, and this is what I recommend you guys do for you guys who are getting the errors. If I go to console, I should see this. That's all I should see. If I look at sources, right? So if I click sources, and if I look at scripts, I should see both of a scene script, right, and my core script, which I don't see. I don't see a core script here, which is weird. You should see my core script in here too. I'm not seeing that because it's in there. It's actually going to that. But here's my key scene. All it is a playable that I'm looking at. Okay. So phaser. So now I'm going to upload to GitHub. So you have what I have. I'm going to go. I've made some changes. I've made some changes to the reference, and I've added some more stuff. So I'm going to say, oh, I know why it's not working, by the way, for you guys. You have to do a TSD install, because there's no typings. Right? So I'm going to say git, I'll say added reference, or added a scene module. And before you do that, I'm going to go push. It's going to push it up. And that's why, because if you look at my folders, remember, whenever we do this, I'm looking at my folder structure for a second. Notice how I have a Bower. You also have to do a Bower install. That's important. You need to do these two installs. You need to do a Bower install and a TSD install. Because if you don't do a Bower install and TSD install, you won't have the libraries and you won't have the typings. So please do that. Now, there's some challenges with that. I'll tell you right now. Because my Bower, I've modified my installed files, and you have to change some of the stuff to make it go. Because under my scripts, this is where it gets a little hairy for you guys, because I've made some changes to make this thing go, right? So under my scripts, I'm going to say my desktop. Let's go into my phaser pilot. Notice that under my typings, under phaser, all I have, and this is what I recommend you do, is p2.d.ts and my phaser.d.ts. You'll have those two, right? If you don't have these two things under your typings, you have to change it to that, right? And probably what I should have done, did I include typings in there? Hold on. Git ignore. I did ignore my typings, yeah? I have Bower components too. Why did I do that? What did I put it under? Assets lib. I may have put it under scripts lib. Because I have a Bower RC. So there's scripts lib is here, right? Scripts lib. And you know what? I'm going to get rid of all these things from my git ignore file, except for my DS store. So that way you guys have what I have. So I'm going to do one of these guys. Typings. And get rid of my Bower components and my node modules for now, because it's not a node file. So I'm going to kind of save. And I got 99 plus more changes. So what I recommend you do is pull this one down and don't pull the other one down. I'll have everything in there, okay, guys? Just so that way it's going to be what I have. So you won't have to do a TSD install or a Bower install, just so we're on the same page. Sorry, I did bastardize it because the versions of phaser that they had online included extra information when you use Bower, and I had to do it manually. That's all. So let's go back in there, and I'll go into here, and I'll add all this stuff in. There's like 800 files. There we go. Who cares? They're so small anyway. So there's my 800 files, and I added them all in, right? This is all the phasers and everything else that I added in here. And I'll do something like this. I'll say updated project to include all files. There we go. Upload and push. And give it a second while it does its business. Okay, now you should check out, if you go and check out GitHub, pull that one down, please. So if I go down to GitHub and I go to Centennial, let's see if that works a little differently. And phaser pilot should be, more complete. You should have typings in there. It does. And you should also have my scripts with my lib, and it has those two. Okay, so pull that one down, Stephen. Pull the new one down. And for everyone else, please, everyone else, do the same thing with me. I need your help to build this thing up. I can't do it alone. This will take too long for us to do it. That's why I'm going to say, someone look up this, and then you guys have to look it up while I type it in, right? And now run this one and see if it works, Jay, for you. It should work. And same thing with you guys. Yun, make sure you try this as well. Right? So download the more recent version. You cannot use it. Okay, you can still install it as a Visual Studio project. You have to basically install it as a project, like you can install it in Visual Studio as okay, so who else is using Visual Studio and not using Visual Studio Code? Anyone over there? You guys all using Visual Studio Code? All right. Just so we keep you on the same page, for those people who are also using Visual Studio and not Visual Studio Code for whatever reason, let me kick up Visual Studio for a second, and I'll install it in Visual Studio for you as well. Okay? I'll show you how to do that. Visual Studio is very powerful, right? And in fact, if anything, for phaser, it's even easier to build it with Visual Studio than it is with Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio gives it all kinds of code hinting, way more than Visual Studio Code does. Visual Studio Code is just a heavier, lighter version of Visual Studio. But I totally prefer Visual Studio. Visual Studio is like, if I could choose between the two, I would totally choose between these two methods. Absolutely. 100%. And let us kill some of these things that are up. There we go. I got QuickBooks up. There we go. Now let me kick off this. And what I want to do, it's just a reminder for you guys. Huh? So yeah, the plan is last days when we get together, if we get some quick presentations, we'll have some time in the last hour or two to play Counter-Strike with everybody.
So there's also next Tuesday, 8/15.
Oh, geez, I know we're also recording, so I don't understand. I didn't hear a thing.
I'll talk you through
Yeah, Jay.
Tuesday, 8/15 now. Like 24 of us will be there. There's a big figure. I don't even have time to Battlefield. The Battlefield started in Star Wars tonight.
Okay, so I'm here with Visual Studio, and two things I need to do to make this work. One is I need to bring that project across. So if I was going to do this phaser pilot, you can download it here, so I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to put it here on my desktop by pasting it. It's 43 meg. I guess so, because of all the libraries that I downloaded. That's pretty big. That's pretty large. Well, we can reduce that later on. Right now, it's necessary because I'm downloading and installing Bootstrap and a bunch of other stuff that I got in there. Right, so I'll let it go and do its thing. Why is it so big? It must be something that I'm doing on this side. So under scripts, under lib, jQuery isn't that big. Oh, it's here. It's only 2.9. Docs? Maybe it's docs. Maybe the documentation is big. Let's say get info on the docs. Just curious. Yeah, the documentation is 27 megs. The documentation actually includes some examples of how to make stuff work here. Easing and all this other stuff here. A bunch of examples on the docs. So probably could have avoided using that. That's where all the work is. Everything else is small. Same thing with Pixie. I think Pixie's pretty damn small too. Mesh, loaders, closers. Okay. Anyway, so now we've downloaded, or we're downloading, almost finished downloading it. There we go. Here's our COMP397 phaser pilot. I'm going to move it into the right space because doesn't belong there. Where it belongs is something like my sandbox. So I'm going to go into C documents, users, documents, sandbox, right? And I either want to put it in there or let's put it in there. There's a bunch of stuff in there already. And maybe make some space. So that's where I want to put it. So here, into sandbox. So that way, I want to kind of grab it from here and put it into sandbox by just clicking and dragging. Okay. It should be in there. COMP397 phaser palette. See? Okay, so now I want to write it. Let's see if I can do this file, open, website. See if I can do it this way. And local file system. I wonder if I can do it this way. Or I want to create a new project. I want to create a new project, file, new project. So I want to incorporate this project as a project from existing files. So that's the best way to do it. And we'll make it so that it is ASP.NET default project size. One day when it decides to do its thing. Here on my really slow virtual machine now compared to what it was before. Once I upgraded to Windows 10, it became like stupid slow. When I was running Windows 7, no problem. But now with Windows 10, we have to wait. So while we're waiting for this thing to kick off, and we'll minimize this piece. Let's keep going with this side. While I'll work for you, Young, just to make sure it works. Okay, so we've got all our changes. Does yours work now? You tried it? Kick it off, guys, so let's see if it works. You're working now completely? You're working? Great, no need to sign in anymore. Let us, while I'm doing this for you, I'm going to kick off a new web ASP.NET application that we're going to call, just for you, COMP397 phaser. We're going to call it phaser demo. Huh? Yay. All right, so we're going to put that in, and what we're going to do is we're going to say a new empty app. Sorry for people who are on Visual Studio. I'll do it here as well. It'll open up our empty app for a second. Oh yeah, my machine's spinning. It's like just go on. Okay, cool. And come on. In here, I'm going to notice that there's the project is phaser demo project. Can you just quit on me? That's okay because we've already got a project. I don't know why that quit on me. I have all kinds of, dude. Like I've never seen it so slow ever. It's crazy. All right, back to this. So what I want to do for us is, for the people that are with me, is I want to make it so that our game inside of our scripts, our core game module, which is this, all it has is this right now. Game, scenes, game, this is a new game. But before we do that, we have to go into our scenes, where we look at our main game scene, this one. And what I want to do here is, see how it says public game is equal to phaser game? That makes no sense to me. We have to extend phaser game. So we're going to say extends, right? Because that's the power of TypeScript, phaser.game, right? Okay, if that's true, if we extend phaser.game, then we need to, in the constructor, the first thing in the constructor we need to do is send to the superclass all of our stuff. So we'll say in our superclass, we're going to send in all this stuff, 640, blah, 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 blah. Right? So all this stuff here. And cut. We're going to go here under super and paste. Right? And that's going to satisfy our superclass requirements. And then we can get rid of this. This game is equal to phaser game. Which means that this game is equal to phaser game. This needs to be gone, right? Because we don't need that anymore. And now we're going to say, instead of this game.load image, we're just going to say this.load image, because this is a game, right? We're in an is a relationship, right, with the game. Same thing with this. So we get rid of all that stuff, all the aspects of game that we want to do, right? Make sense? That should work exactly the same, because this phaser game is a game, right? So transpile. And if I go to my game.ts in my core, all I'm doing is I'm calling the game. Nothing has changed here, right? I've just changed this so that I've kind of refactored my stuff to make it what it is. Here's my preload function where I'll load all my assets. Right now I've got my logo, and again, this logo, if you notice what it is, if I go to my logo, it's a ping file, right? And what I'm saying is the logo is actually, I'm going to say this logo image is a sprite. I'm adding a sprite into this. And if I hover over this, it says phaser sprite. So really what I could do is say, under logo, I can say phaser.sprite when I instantiate it. But that doesn't make any sense, because phaser sprite means that it's only in my create function, and that makes no sense. I probably want to put it up here. So I want to kind of do something like this. I want to say logo is equal phaser.sprite. I'll type phaser sprite, and down here I don't have to declare it. I just have to use it. So I've got one of these, and I kind of use the this keyword, right? This dot logo, and I also said this dot logo anchor set to the blah. These are just normal changes that we would have to make, right? Because this logo, right, is the logo that belongs to this class now that we've created, right? Now, if everything goes well, if I've instead just with those changes, it should still work, right? So let us go back here and reinstantiate our HTTP server. There we go. And let's run it and check it to see if it works on here. If I refresh, we should be still good. Yeah, so we haven't done anything. Let's go back and check your issues here with Creative Cloud. As looks like my machine totally crashed Visual Studio for some reason. I wonder if I have any space left on my virtual machine. That might be the cause. That could be the big problem right now. If I don't have it, this PC. I think I've run out of space. I have to yeah, 2 gig. That's what the problem is. That's why it's running so slow. Even on my shared folders, I'm running really well. So I may have to do something with this virtual machine, clean it up a little bit, so it runs faster. But that's the problem. The problem was when I tried to run this, it overloaded my spacing and caused me a problem. Let me load this up. So see if it doesn't crash again. Okay, so what I really wanted to do was I want to on the PC side, I want to file open from source control. I can do that right now. If I open from source control, it's going to ask me from where, right? And if you notice, there is no source control assigned. So if I go to changes or settings or whatever, I don't have anything in source control that I've got. I could open up from somewhere else, but that doesn't make any sense. The other thing is, if I want to, I can say open from, it's a project from files, right? Like almost like from project from existing files, right? So that's what I want to do. I want to kind of install my project in my solution, right? So how to do that? The fastest and easiest way to do it is to like literally drag it in. So if I was to go here, and if I go back to that application that I had, which is my sandbox, don't crash. This is for Yun, so he knows how to do it. So go to see users, and Tom, and documents. And if I look at my sandbox, which is where I put my files, then I have something called phaser pilot, right? COMP397 phaser pilot, this one. So I'm going to kind of reduce that size and go over here. And this phaser pilot, I'm not going to go take this one and put it over here because I've called it phaser demo, right? So I'm just going to kind of go into phaser pilot, grab everything from here, right? So all this stuff, including my Git. We may have to do something with that. Actually, I won't grab Git because that makes no sense to grab that, but I'll grab everything else. And then I'll drag and drop it into my project files like this. If it doesn't accept it, it'll tell me it won't accept it. But all it's doing is it's going to copy everything physically into this folder, right? And that's what you should do then. So I'm recreating the project in Visual Studio because my project is inside of a project folder, but it's the same. The only thing I won't have is my Git, the connection to Git. So I'd have to download it and attach it like this, right? So because my solution files, I don't want to touch those things, right? That's just a solution that's in Visual Studio. Once I've attached them in, and if I should run it here in Visual Studio to check to see if it works before I do anything else, right? So if I don't run it in Visual Studio, it doesn't run, then who cares? What? An empty project. Yeah. And oh, I didn't do. Okay, your project configured with support TypeScript. TypeScript typing provides da. No, I already have my typing. All right, so that means that if I go into, see, I have assets now. Let's check them. I have assets, my fonts, my images, my content, which is where I normally have my game.css, my scripts, logos, and scenes, and everything, and my typings, which is everything that I have normally, my tsd.d.ts file. Everything should be there, right? So the only thing that I don't have when I do stuff in TypeScript is for Visual Studio slightly different. Okay, let's check to see if my index.html works by pressing play. So all I've done is drag my files into Visual Studio, and now I'm playing them on Google with IIS as opposed to as a back-end server. And it looks like it says build succeeded. Let's see if it works with Visual Studio. I'll tell you again, I love Visual Studio. Okay, I got nothing against Visual Studio. Visual Studio is a very powerful engine. Do not restore. Do not restore. Let's do its load. But I shut it down before, so I may have to run it again. Because it built fine. Right, so that's where, remember, I'm running a virtual machine here, so guys, it's doing its thing. Oh, it's actually loading. Here we go. There we go. Right, so that all works fine. So refresh that. Yeah, so I got it working. And if I was to look at the, if I look at inspect element here in Visual Studio, I should see the same thing where I see, where I'm going to see the thing there. Where I'm going to see my stuff. Just give it a second in my slow system. Okay, let's do it this way. Oh, there it is. I'm not patient. There it is. See this? Oh. Phaser 2.44, PixieJS 4.229, WebGL, and Web Audio. That tells you all the stuff that's enabled, right? So that is working. Are you getting this working here? This is for you. I'm doing this. So you can help us out. Huh? What? Jesus, man. What else can I do to help you? All right, okay. All right, so this is the piece that I've got going on right now. So I've got this piece. All right, so what I want to do is I want to install some of our stuff, right? So let's check this. Let's go back to here and see what we got. So all we've done is we've changed our preload to attach my file, and we've called it logo, just like we would normally do in Create.js. Same stuff. So then, if that's true, we should be able to do our ocean. So let's install our MP assets, which we normally would do. And I'm gonna do that by minimizing this. And I have MP assets, which is right here, with my audio and my fonts and everything else. If you don't have MP assets, you can get them from the from GitHub, right? They exist there. So I'm going to take my sprites and all this kind of stuff. I will not take all the planes, just the stuff that I need. So plane, ocean, island, and cloud. And I'm going to put those inside my images folder, right, in my project. So here's my images. And I'm going to get my fonts and put that in my fonts folder. There we go. And I'm going to take my audio and put that in my, I think I called it sounds folder. There you go. So I've got all my assets. So all my assets for MailPilot are there. That's the first step. Okay, so I've added 11 files. Let's go to the next step. Meanwhile, if you're not going to follow along, you'll do. Is the what? Okay. So I'm going to just turn this down just to save myself some cycles, all right? Because if I keep this running while I'm running it, then it'll be really weird. It's like I run it twice. Okay, so what I want to do then is in my ocean, right? First of all, let's see if I can recreate some of those files. Now, I already have them. Why recreate the wheel is what I always like to say, right? I'm going to make a new sprite. I know that Phaser has its own sprite because we just did it, right? The sprite is right here. If I look at the scenes under game.ts, I'm loading my sprite right here by calling this.addSprite. Oh. Right? So, and I'm loading it into something called logo, right? And logo itself is a Phaser sprite. So it's almost like if I was going to create my own sprite for my object, right? I mean, you have to figure out that I would have to make my own sprite, extension of sprite that I'm going to call something else, like I'm going to call ocean, just like we normally would do. So let's see if we can do that. So I'm going to go into my, and I'm not sure if we can do this, guys. So this is kind of a thing I'm trying to do here. Right? So I'm going to make a new folder called objects. We're going to do our first ocean. The first thing I always do is the ocean, right? And I'm going to make a new file that I'm going to call ocean.ts. In my ocean.ts, I'm going to make a new module called objects. So that's the first piece. And I'm going to make a new class called ocean, which is going to extend the Phaser.Sprite class. Okay, and do one of those. And I'm also going to export it. If I don't export ocean, I will never see it. Okay, good. So that's first. Second, I need to make a constructor. This is where the challenge always is, right? So here's my constructor. And my constructor demands that I set something up to my superclass, just like normal. So I go superclass, and now it's going to ask me for all kinds of stuff. Sprite, it says my game. I need a reference to my game object, phaser game. That's mandatory. Notice that there's no question mark there. I need an X and Y coordinate. It's an optional key. I need a phaser.render texture, phaser.bitmaps data. These are all options for my key, right? And I need a pixie texture, right? One of those things, a pixie texture. These are all options. So string is an option, the key of my string. Phaser render texture, that's one thing. And then phaser bitmap data. These are all things that I have to send into my superclass. But the definite thing I have to send in there is a reference to my game, right? Because I need a phaser game reference, which means that means I have to take it into my constructor, or I have to make it into the global namespace, right? Wherever that is. So there's a couple of options. I think I'd like to take it into my constructor to keep it encapsulated. So I'm going to say game then is of type phaser.game, and I'm going to pass game into my superclass because that's a requirement. And the other requirements there, if you notice in my constructor, I need to also pass in an X and Y coordinate for sure. Those two things, an X and Y, I need to pass in. So let's take a look and see with my X and Y is going to be obviously 0, 0, because my X and Y is going to be top left corner of the screen, right, for my ocean. So 0 and 0, right, because that's not going to be anything new, right? That's enough to make my superclass not complain. But let's see how I did it in my game.ts file, which is in my scenes, because that's important to look at, right? So sprites look like this. The world, this.world center X, that's the X component, and this.world center Y, which is the Y component. It's interesting, I can't put 0 and 0, it looks like, right? And then a reference to my string, which is called logo, right? Logo I've defined here in this namespace, which is my load image, right? So this logo is available here in my preloader, right? And I'm wondering if I was to create my logo sprite here, when I do my logo sprite as a new ocean, to be a new ocean, right? Then I should probably send in logo, this logo, into it, my guess. So let's do that just to make sure. So go back into objects, ocean. So that's another thing I need. So I need phaser game, reference to the game object, right? An X and Y coordinate, right? And you know what? Instead of putting 0, 0, I want to do it out here because I'm going to create a game object afterwards, okay? Like a standard game object like I normally do. So I'm going to say phaser game, and then I'll say X, which is a number, and then Y, which is a number, and then a reference to the sprite. So it's going to be the sprite string, sprite string, which is a string, right? And my sprite string is going to go here. So it's going to go game, and in here it'll be X, the local X, this one here that comes in, and this will be Y, the local Y, and then this will be the sprite string. So I'm passing that in. Okay, cool. So that's my sprite object, right? Now my sprite doesn't have any kind of update or anything like that. It doesn't have an update or whatever, because remember in sprites in my phaser object, I haven't seen updates. This is what I need you guys to check. Can you check to see what my my update method is, my event loop for phaser, please, because I know it's different. Meanwhile, I'll fix this over here. So phaser.ts. For now, all I'm going to say is this. Instead of logo being a phaser sprite, I'll say logo is of type objects.ocean. And I got to make sure that I include objects ocean in my stuff. Objects ocean. And this .add.sprites, I think I need to do this game.add. So this .add and I'm not going to do I wonder how I would instantiate this thing in a different way. I guess I'd have to do new. I don't have to do this anymore, this add sprite. I don't think I'd have to do this anymore.
What are you looking for with the sprite?
This.add.ocean. If I can do that. Sorry, I'm going to just redo this. I want to know, not for the sprite, I want to know for the game, this .logo is equal to new ocean objects dot ocean, and I'm going to pass in there I'm going to pass in the logo for now as an ocean. Don't worry. I'm going to pass in these coordinates here, this stuff here, this and y, and a reference to game, and then this dot world dot y, center x, and this dot world dot center y. Follow me here for a second. This is my mad scientist stuff that I'm doing, and then followed by logo, because that's what it requires. So if I do that and game, which means this, right? Reference to the game. All right, so so I'm passing this in. I'm passing the x and y coordinates, and I don't know if it adds it in though, like automatically. So and then this anchor set to 0.5, 0.5. This piece I should be able to do inside my logo, inside my ocean for a second. So I'll say here in the constructor, I'll say this dot anchor anchor set. Is that what it is? Anchor dot set to. Here, I'll pull this whole thing in. So I'm not gonna remember it. I'm not that good at it yet to remember it. This dot anchor dot set to 0.5, 0.5 here, and I don't have to do it. I shouldn't have to do it here in my game. So why am I doing this first? Because I don't want to duplicate. Oops, not that one. I don't want to duplicate my efforts when it comes to every single sprite. So I want to kind of see if I can figure this out. Now I'm not sure if I need the add. If I have to go this dot add and then logo. Let's see what that does just by doing this. So I'm creating a new objects ocean, this sprite, and when I do that, it instantiates the new logo, and I wonder if I have to add it afterwards, like this dot add logo, something like that. Yeah, well, let's see what it does, right? So I'm going to kind of transpile everything and go into my scene and refresh. I'm expecting it to crash. Yeah, I thought so. So let's see if what I get with my inspect element. I shouldn't get an error because I didn't do anything that's error-wise. Oh, I did. Objects is no. Oh yeah. Shoot, man, I forgot to do that. So let's go back into index, and I need to add references to my objects before my scenes. So my objects come before my scenes. I'm going to say script source is equal to scripts, and it's going to be objects and ocean.js, right? I need to add that in there. And I need to go and do the same thing with my reference file, which is inside of my core. So core references. It's going to come before my game scene, so it's going to be like triple forward slash reference path is equal to dot dot and forward slash objects, and then it's going to be ocean.ts transpile. Good. And now let's go back to that thing there and refresh this one, and now I get good. I don't get anything here, but I don't have an error either. That means that I'm missing a piece. Something I'm missing, but it's not causing an error what I've done. All right. So how do I add? How do I add a sprite to the scene? A sprite to the game. That's the question that I would have. So if you guys look that up, I know it's the add method, but there must be a couple of ways of doing it. So if I go to here, and I go to here, and I go to my game.ts, which is in here, I should be able to do something like, after I make my new logo, whatever it is, I should be able to do something like this. This dot add, and then dot, I wonder if I can do it like this. No, that doesn't work. This dot add dot, I think it's dot add dot, and then that sprite, and then it would be
coordinates and
the sprite, which returns a phaser sprite. So I wonder if I just do this dot logo. So that is a sprite. So if, or maybe I can do, or no, not this dot, yeah, this dot logo, that would be a sprite, but it's returning a sprite object. So it doesn't allow me to do the add that way. So I wonder if I can do this dot logo then, is instead of using the new operator like this, in Phaser, you wouldn't do that. You would do this dot logo is equal to this dot add dot objects dot ocean. This dot add dot objects dot ocean. Wonder if that would do. Right? Because it says objects not using type game factory, but it is a sprite. So would we be able to call it a sprite? Sprite then, because it is a sprite. I made it a sprite. Is there another way to add a sprite to the scene other than this dot add dot instead of the game factory? Like, and of course the way to look at this is the thing with this. The way to look at this was look at the core file. So you go look at that, and same thing with you, Stephen. Can you help out?
Can I get the updated loop?
The what?
Updated loop.
Thank you. I'm going to go to thinking if I can go to here in my core libraries. If I go into my Phaser library, now I think I have in my build, I have Phaser and Phaser.js, and if I look at my Phaser dot add, so this dot add, so find add. See how many of those I have, lots of them. So I kind of go through here, vector add, and it's this dot game dot add. So sprite add. So I wonder, these are all this is the actual classes that they're done. Prototype, narrow phase. So this is not what I want to look. Let's look at the typing. Maybe that typing will help me out as well. Phaser.d.ts and look at things like game.add. Game.add. No. How about add.sprite? The add function. The animation manager has an add. So it's an add method. I wonder if I can pass in a sprite object and modifying things. Add.sprite. So sprite. Constructor. Animation. Hold on, go back to that one. My animation has a sprite as a constructor. Animation manager. Audio sprite. Button extends phaser image. I wonder if there's one that extends sprite. Constructor for my cache. My audio sprite. Sprite sheet. Target is phaser.sprite. Follow phaser.sprite. That's interesting that they have those things. There's an event loop. But they must have a sprite class. So maybe sprite with a capital S. Sprite. Yeah, it's still going to look at all those things again. I wonder if I must just circle, color, create. Must be down here under S. If they did it nice and orderly, they should have done it under the S. Input. Physics. Hold on. Title. These are all extra stuff that I've got in here. Point array. Plugin. Webcam. Point. They have a point array. That's really good. Quadri. Rectangle. And this is part of the work we have to do with a new library. We have to look it up. Sound manager. We're close. Sprite. So it extends Pixie Sprite. So that's interesting. So what it does is it takes in phaser game and a Pixie texture or a frame. That's what it does. And when it takes it in as a sprite, it has all of these. Look at all the what it comes with: health, in-camera, input, all kinds of stuff. So that's good. Bring to top, That's methods that it comes with. Crop, destroy, draw polygon, play. So I can play. That's good. That's like we do in Crate.js. Pre-update, send to back, set frame, set scale, update. They have an update for the sprite as well, built in. That's good. That means that's good. So that means I can just call its own update method to do it. So now game.add. If I go game add, if I go my game object, so game, which is something that I want to see way up here. Let's see, devices, frame, group. No, I passed it. It's all this. Graphics, gamepad. Because game is the main phaser thing. There it is. So game has an add, right? And it has an add, which is a phaser game factory. But add is that a method? Let's go back down here and see. No. And phaser game factory is what it does. Is of type phaser game factory, which means we have to maybe we do it a different way. So let's take it. Can you look up phaser game factory, please, if there's such a thing? So game factory. Is it phaser game? Phaser.game object factory. So game object factory. There it is. Game object factory gives me two things. The constructor takes a game object, the game itself. That's what the constructor takes. So it's, if I go back to the code, if the game factory takes a constructor, and I have two objects or two things, a game and a world, then I have all these things: audio, sprite, which passes in the values of my sprite. Tile sprite. Pass in the values of my sprite. That's what it does. So when I do my add, right, it actually attaches this object. When I do the add method, it attaches it to the game somehow. My object game factory. That's all it has. So these are all method definitions. So the sprite method returns a sprite at the end of the day, but it does something. So I need to look at my game object factory in my documentation. So what does it do?
In the Sprite section, it's in Sprite specification. Got X and Y and a bunch of optional frame key.
So because this is what it does. Look, this dot add is equal to a new phaser game object factory this. So game object factory might be something I need to do. I may need to extend game object factory, right? So when I do the add method, I do it within my game. That's what I do. So I do it in my sprite. I don't do it in the game in this particular case. I do it in the sprite, and I add that in because I already have my sprite. It's this, right? So if I can do that, then I would pass in a reference. Maybe that's the way I can do it. No, I'm not going to get too excited because it says this.add is a new sprite, right? Let's see what happens, right? And I may not be able to do it the way we did it before. We may have to do it different ways. Okay, let's go back here. And so I set the anchor to whatever it is. Anchor set to 0.5, 0.5. I added this sprite in, passed it in as an object to my constructor, so it is a sprite now. It's received it, this object here, and I should be able to say something like game.add.this, something like that, or .sprite. So I can only do is game.add.sprite, tile sprite, existing. What does existing do when I do game.add existing?
As an existing display object for the game.
Existing.
So it's Sprite or
Any object.
or a button.
Well, there you go. That's the way. So game.add existing is what I would do. And I wouldn't do it here instead of me doing, because I've already set up my sprite. That's their answer. Whew, wow, that would take a long time. So here, if that's true, then I was right the first time. So instead of I do this logo is equal to add new logo, which is object of type new objects.ocean. I would definitely do that there, but then I would do this.game dot this.add.existing, and I'll pass in this.logo. If you're right, if that's what it is, then it should work. Let's go back to here and refresh, and yeah. So now we have to replace that with our ocean sprite, and to do that, we have to go into let's kill this thing. We have to go into our thing here. We say this is in our create function, and we have to load in some more images. So we're not going to load in our phaser logo anymore. We're going to call this thing ocean because we don't care about the logo anymore. And our assets images phaser logo small is not going to be in. It's going to assets images ocean dot. Is it a bitmap? Core. What did I call it? Ocean.gif. So ocean dot gif. And if that's true, let me just, so this is what's going to get added in there. And the center X and center Y, it's not going to be that. It's going to be the 0, 0 mark. I wonder if I just can go one of these guys. 0, 0. It's the top left corner of the screen. And I wonder if that is the top left corner of the screen. Because in every game, they have their different coordinate system. It could be the bottom left corner of the screen, right? So I don't know where that is yet. And we'll have to play around with that. But I'm going to send in ocean to this, right, in my new sprite. And then let's go back into my objects, ocean, which is down here. And we're not going to anchor set to 0.5.5. We're not going to change my anchor. That's like registration points, which we don't want to do for my ocean. Okay, now let's retranspile. And with that alone, I should be able to get my ocean, and I get nothing. It says error loading asset from URL assets images. Oh, that's good. Well, I'm glad. That's a good error. It's a really good error. That's a great error, right? Ocean. Come on, Tom. You guys should catch it. You guys are right here with me. All right, let's try that again. Transpile. Go over here and refresh. We got our ocean. Now we also have some other problems with our game. Our game plays my ocean. It shows my ocean. But one thing it doesn't do is it doesn't set my game to the right size. So I make sure I get my game working at the right size, because my game for MailPilot is 640 by 480. So let's go over here and change my custom game class, which is my scene. Oh, it is 640 by 480. That's good. That's good. That's good. Okay, that's a good thing. Okay, how do I change my ocean? I need my updates. Did you find my updates?
Yeah, if you go under game.
In the game itself?
In the game, yeah, it's public. It's literally a public update.
Update. Void. And that's it? And I put it in there?
Yep.
Fantastic. I like it. That's nice and easy, right? And now, if that makes sense, that means we also have an update in my ocean. So I want to call my update on my ocean class, and I probably can if I'm not wrong, because my ocean class is an object. I'm going to have an update for my my ocean class, right? Which I will override here, and I'll call this update. It'll be a public update that I will run. Now we have all this stuff. Nothing is different from what we did with MailPilot for this. Now we're back into normal territory again with MailPilot because we've already done it. So if I look at your MailPilot stuff, and if I look at the example of my scripts in my objects and my ocean, which would be here, my ocean.ts file, and I'll open that up with Text Wrangler, I have all this. So I have my DY number, my constructor, which I'm not going to change. I'm going to get this, put that in there. And I'm going to grab the dy value here and the reset under my superclass, which I would normally do right here. I don't have my reset class yet, but I need all this. In my update, I'm going to do this.y, all that stuff. I might as well return void too. Void. Check bounds, we don't have that. And now these are my private methods, which is my private reset and my private check bounds, all the way down to this. And yeah, that's what we have in our ocean class from before. So this should all work. And I put this into my update. My update is my check bounds method. Now let's see, without adding it into the game, does it have its own update? Because these things, the phasers are a lot more built up than CreateJS. CreateJS is, it's an all-round network, a framework that works for everything. Phaser is a game engine, a game framework. That's what it's made for. So it has a lot more stuff in there in the back end. So let's see if this will work. And if I just put this update like this, or do I have to use the same way I usually do it in CreateJS, which is ocean.update? Do I have to call the update a method in the update method of my game? Just saying, right? So let's see if that works. So all I did was copy this stuff right from my MailPilot. Right? And the only thing I changed is the superclass and the constructor. My constructor has to be different because it demands more stuff than I had before. Okay. So let's go back into go back to here and check it out. So refresh. Okay, that's bad. And it's bad because of a couple of reasons. One, we don't have an image. That's really bad, right? So that's something that's not happening right now. It's minus 960, and it's supposed to kind of come in, right? So that's another thing is, did we evaluate things properly? I don't know. So we go back.
Backwards.
Could be. Because 0, 0 could be the bottom left still, right? But if that's true, then we should still see movement when we start the game. So no errors, but you could be the bottom left corner of the screen. Check. See where can someone check to see what the phase documentation to see where the X and Y coordinate starts off? Then we'll know for sure. Save us some time. Which means this would be plus 960 instead of minus 960. And then we'd be going up the screen, not down the screen. So this dy would be minus 5 instead of plus 5. Right? Minus 5 would mean going down. And actually, there's a really easy way to check that. This y, I want to check that really quickly. This y would be 960. And instead of dy being plus 5, it's minus 5. That would be the change. If you're right, and my check bounds would be the other way around. But let's just, it would flow one time. So let's just go into kill this and refresh, and let's see what it gives me. Nothing. So I'll undo this. Undo. And again, I don't know if I can override my update method, or I have to call something else. I have to be careful here because maybe my update method does something in the game that I've overwritten something else, like it killed some of the other stuff it did, like it's supposed to do. And to check that, I can always just kill the update method. That's another thing I can start doing like this. I kill the update method, so there is no update for a second. And just all I've done is set up resets. So I reset and I set my dy. So this reset, all it does is it sets this minus y. But there's no update, and there's a reason for this, right? So let's go into this again and refresh. It's not that. It's not that. Am I right? Are you right though, Stephen? Is it up left corner? So it's not that. So dy is this. Reset to minus 960, right? This dot y is greater than 0, then this dot reset. This dot y. So it's all the same. So let me just undo that. So all I changed was the reset. Right? So just undo that. Let's just not reset for a second and see what happens. So da-da. And see if that killed it, that minus 960. So I didn't change anything else, right? So I got nothing. Okay, let's keep killing it. So the only thing else I did was to do this dy stuff, right? So I did this, and I have an update function too. So let's kill the update function again, just to make sure that we don't have an update. We never establish an update function, because otherwise, and it could be that I can't add any methods to my sprite. That's also possible, like because it overloads the sprite, it adds it in, so it doesn't understand those extra methods, and it fails because it doesn't get it. Because even though our sprite is extending sprite, well, but that doesn't make any sense. But let's see what happens. So let's say if I go like this, transpile, and let's just check to see what I'm getting. So I want to kind of go over here and go into the ocean.js. I'm getting all this in my ocean.js now. I don't care about this, because that's just because it says it's already defined. But I want to see what it says. My ocean prototype reset and ocean prototype check bounds. Like all that stuff should be working, because I didn't do it, and I took out my update. All right, let's go back in here. Refresh. Okay, what is it doing? This is the problem with these frameworks. They don't give us a lot of feedback into what's going on, right? Because we're using a whole framework. That's why I like CreateJS more, because CreateJS we know what's going on with it. This, it could be something going wrong, but we don't know. So now I'm going to do my other stuff in here to check. This is my suspicion is.
Could it even be the update loop in the game? Could it be the update you added in the game that screwed it up?
Don't know. Maybe. Because it's empty.
That was also added.
Yeah, that's also true. So let's go back in here and go into my game. And because it's empty in my game, that could be the issue too. So this and this, because we have an empty update. So it doesn't draw anything again.
Sprite has override the update method in your own custom objects to handle any update requirements.
So then, we don't keep it in the game, keep it in its own object. So that means if I go into my phaser, my ocean.ts, we put all that back. So I don't do this. I was right. So you were right, actually, Stephen. It's something we did to kill it, but we'll do all this.
Game object has any children, call update on those two.
Call it what? Update on those two?
Yep.
Just those two.
On all the children as well as the game.
All right. So let's try this out and refresh.
So could you also call up?
So we don't ever have to use the game update class unless you have an update that you want to do for that class, something you want to do for the game itself, right? Not for my objects, because this object's going to run. So that's the first piece. Yay, we got the first piece, guys. That's the first piece done.
But are we going to want the game to be running the update rather than each object doing it?
Actually, in CreateJS, they recommend the other way too. Right, I've been doing it through the game because it makes more sense to me, right? But if I was to do that, and let's just see that if that works, I have my update class, because my update class, like what I said, my update itself has each object is loaded in Phaser. It's not like it is in CreateJS. CreateJS it's bare, it's lean, right? In Phaser it has everything inside, right? So that's why it's almost like each sprite is a big game object. Like you see all those other things it can do, right? That's what it does. But I'm wondering if I can do. I wonder if I can do if I go to the core game object, which is this one. So let's just kill. We don't need all these things anymore. That was just just getting our ocean running, right? But that's what happens, guys. Like I'll tell you, it takes this time, right? So I wonder if our not in my core, but in my if I go to my scene game.ts, if I actually have my update in here, can I do that? Can I have an update function in my gaming and could I call it manually here as well? So could I do something like this dot? It's not logo, can't be logo anymore. Let's redo this too. We'll call this. Oops, what did I do there? We'll call this ocean, right? And we'll make this ocean. Bear with me here. I want to do another test. Ocean. And then I'll say this dot ocean dot update. Can I do that? explicitly. This is more an explicit call as opposed to an implicit call. Does that work with my update method? If this works, this right here, then it'll be the same as what we did before. We can ignore the other way of doing it, right? So I go here and refresh, and no. We have an uncaught type error, cannot read property update of undefined. Why? Doesn't give me more details. Game update, game.ts, request animation frame update. Oh no, they use request animation frame. Windows request animation frame dot force set timeout on loop. So then, can we even do a game update in the main game loop? I don't think you can. I think it's automatic. I think each object takes care of itself once you add it in. Okay, I can deal with that. That's a little different coding-wise, but that means I don't do this anymore. I take care of my own update. Each object takes care of its own. Okay, so that's okay. That means I need, get this working. I need my plane. That's the next thing I need. Right, so let's get my plane going. Now my plane is also a sprite, but it doesn't have the same functionality as my ocean. So I'm going to get my objects. I'm going to add in a new file that's going to be called plane.ts, and let's do a module that's called objects. In fact, let's just not do this. Let's just grab the stuff where we have. Right? Why am I going to recreate the wheel? So I'm going to go back in here and go to my plane. One step at a time, eh? Because open with text wrangler. If we get our plane working, guys, I'm good. I'm happy. We can talk about collisions and all that stuff. But actually, collision would be the same, because our collision detection method is our own collision detection method. It doesn't have nothing to do with phaser. And now we'd have to look up collision detection in phaser. Maybe there's a better way they do it, because we created our own method. Maybe phaser does another way. So here's our plane object. I'm just going to grab all this stuff here, copy it. I'm going to go back to here and paste. And now we have to make some changes. Oh yeah, Steven did it to me now, eh? Because he did this. He made all this key down and stuff. We're not going to do the key down method. We will not, just because I don't want to instantiate all those things. Let me get rid of all this. My plane is pretty lean otherwise, right? Control action and engine off. That's going to be a problem. We'll have to figure this out, the engine off piece. Sign controls we need to do. And I want to play my sound, which we don't have yet. And my control actions can go this way, bye-bye. But this .stage, we're going to figure out this X, and we're going to figure out how to control mouse movement, how to map mouse movement with the X. So can you find that out? Look at mouse movement, mouse X and mouse Y in phaser. That's a little different there, and I'll realign this while you guys are doing that. So this extends, we'll say phaser dot sprite, because it's also a sprite, and which means I got to send in here in my constructor. I need to get all that stuff. So I need to get the name of the game, reference to game, which is reference to phaser.game. Yeah, I told you that there's some good stuff about it, and an X and Y coordinate. Hold on a second. Y number. And I also need an object that's the sprite string. So sprite string, which is a string. And I'm going to pass that into my superclass. So it'll be game X, Y, and the sprite string. That's what it's going to be. Okay, now it doesn't, my private engine sound, how do I do sounds and thing? What do I do?
Phaser.sound.
What is it?
Phaser.sound, that's just the gas button.
Phaser.sound.
Yep.
Okay, and that's how it should be. And then now how do I play my engine sound? Or how do I register my engine sound? How do I register sounds, period?
Phaser.sound.add.
No.
Try it at least.
No, it's waste time. Go. I want to play a sound. How do I add sounds to phaser? What about the mouse? Can anyone figure out the mouse coordinates yet?
It's game.input.mousepointer.
Okay, so game, lowercase game, game.input. Oh, not gamepad. This dot game dot input dot mouse pointer.
Yeah.
Mouse pointer dot X. That's pretty simple. That's what maps in for this one, right? Now let's play this out. So how do I do the engine sound play? How do I play a sound? How do I register a sound? Do I have to register the sound on my preloader?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
So that means in my preloader, which is in my game.ts file. So images.
Game.load.audio in the preload.
Okay. So and that's in the where in the preload?
In the preload.
Okay, let's do that. So I'll go into objects, not objects. I'll go into my core game.css. Get rid of this stuff. I got all these things already. Sounds. And it's in my core. I'll go into my game.ts file here in my core. No, not that. In my scenes, sorry, I'll be okay. And in here you're saying, I load it up? I say this.load.sound.
Yeah, audio.
This.load.audio, and I call it my engine sound. So engine, that's what I called it before. And I'm going to kind of give it a path, the URL, so which is going to be called assets. Oh no, up one. So up one assets. Sounds, I think I called it, sounds.engine.og. Does it take OG files? Because if it doesn't take OG Warriors files, we'd have to convert OG to MP3 for it to work, right? Okay, so that I've registered my engine sound. Now, I wonder when I create my object, do I have to pass it in, right? Which is my sound object for this sprite. So when I go back to my plane, which is this, not only would I ask for my sprite string, but my engine sound string. Engine sound string, which I'm passing it in as a string object. Right? Engine sound string, string object, so that comes in. And then when I play my sound, this engine sound, how do I play it? Play marker, so that's a string, position, loop, I want to loop it, and it returns phaser sound. So I want to play the phaser sound. But how do I register it again? How do I register it? Is it a new? Do I use the new keyword again or no?
I just game.add.audio.
Oh no. Game.add. What is it?
Audio.
The audio piece.
Yeah, and it's whatever the key.
So then I would say, yeah, but that's just gonna. How do I play that though?
Let's look up that.
This dot add dot audio. Oh, child. Add dot. Oh no. This dot game dot add dot audio. Or would I add an existing object again? Would I add existing again? Well, let's add audio, and then.
Play.
No, but how do I register it first?
Oh.
So I'd have to do what we said. We would have to say is it's equal to this.
Game.add.audio.
Yeah, game.add.audio, and it's just it'll be
Engine sound.
or just
It
So we add that in. So that doesn't play it. That just registers it. Now how do I play it?
Music
dot add dot play.
Oh, you take that and dot play.
the engine sound equals
Yeah.
game.add.audio.
So once you've got that, so yeah.
Sorry. So this dot underscore engine sound is equal to this dot game dot add dot audio sound.
Yeah,
Right?
this dot engine sound dot play.
And then this dot engine sound dot play, and then it's going to be the marker or no, I want it to loop though. So I would have to probably say something like this. It takes. Do I have to do it like this? So it'd have to be loop, and then it's going to be Boolean, so true.
Yeah, there's extension property.
Would I do one of these though when I say loop true? Or just pass in loop true like this, loop true by naming the option. Name loop so loop true.
It says parameter, so 5 p.m. for the first grade.
So
like nothing, and then that. Right? So hold on a second. So that means it would be, so string would be nothing. So null position.
Or you might be able to set this dot engine noise and sound dot loop equals to true.
yeah,
And then just play it.
and then
Play nothing. I guess right. This dot underscore engine sound dot
Loop,
play. Oh, that loop
loop equals to true.
is equal to true.
in your game audio, it should be the not get engine sound string. It should be the whatever your. Oh, you've already passed it.
So maybe I'll do this first before I play it. So cut that out there, put it there, and then play it. When it's instantiated. Okay, so let's see if this works. So if this works, let's pass it into my index.html, and then we'll end it for the day. Because if we do this, we can do everything else by figuring it. Once we figure this out, now you can figure out everything else. Now it's
Pictures, things moving.
right. And now it's our game.ts file would be, I have to add my plane. So first of all, I got to do it here. So I got to say this dot plane, which means I have to make plane is equal to objects dot plane, and this dot plane is equal to a new objects dot plane, just like we normally would. When we pass in a reference to this, we pass in the position of the plane, which would be it doesn't really matter because I'm going to reset them anyway, right? So I can pass in 0, 0 again, and because I'm going to reset them afterwards, and then pass in plane and pass in my engine sound, which is engine. Right? Plain engine, and then I'm going to add existing again. So I'm going to add existing, this line, add existing, this dot plane, and I'm making the public right now, but we could make them private if you wanted to. I don't need this anymore. Oh, I need my anchor. I need the anchor to be set to 0.5.5. So I need to take that piece and go into plane, and when I instantiate it here into this piece, I want to say this dot logo, this dot anchor is set to 0.5 and 0.5, because otherwise, so set registration points. That's what it'd be, to the center of the plane of the object. Right, because the object, this dot y, I didn't say this dot x, but this dot x is down here, so it doesn't matter if I pass in 0, 0, because it's going to start at the top left corner and also it'll go right away, right? So everything starts at the top left corner in our world. How about that? Okay, let's add it to index.html, which means it's going to be added after this. I got a couple more places to add it, guys, and then I'm almost done. I'm rushing to get it done here, right? So plain.js. Now I'm going to go into my references, which is in the core, my TS, which is here, and I'm going to copy that in as well. And plain. And does it take OGG files? Do we check that out? Because that would be very bad. And kind of refer all those. And let's go back into here and refresh. No plain, but look, it does work. Look, but we just didn't get the plain object, so that's good. So we're almost there, guys. Look, it says phaser cache get image key plain not found in cache. Okay, so that's good. Well, that's something we forgot, right? So I'll go to my game. That's how easy it is, though, guys. I think we're done. Like I think that's all we need to do. Now, I would wonder how I would load in sprite sheets, because I would probably want to load a sprite sheet of this stuff instead of each individual object. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's something that's stupidly easy. Assets dot images dot plain dot ping, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, well, I'll take a risk. So this, and then do it again, and Come back over and refresh, and we should have it. Guys, once we have the plane and we have a looping sound like we do, the rest, so as they say, is easy. Right? Now, scenes, there is a scene manager. We have a total scene manager where you add the scenes in, so we build the scene up, which we've already kind of done. That's what the games are. Yeah, so we're good to go.
The sprite sheet, you put in what you want to call it, you put in the file path, you just tell it how big each tile is on the sprite sheet.
And actually, they even have it. They even have it inside. Texture Packer has an extension for Phaser. So when you export from Phaser, it gives you all the stuff you need for Phaser from Texture Packer. Okay, so
Like 3 values.
was that?
It doesn't look like 3 values.
Yeah. So let's just upload this. So we added plane and ocean to our project. And that's all we could get done this week,
Yeah.
right? Because it's enough. And because it took us a little bit of time to learn everything, I'll push it up. That should give you enough, Jay, to
Yeah,
start off.
absolutely, that's more than enough.
Right, so that's it. So that's it. But now we did it well with TypeScript, and the reason why I chose to do that to finish off the day, and next week, remember what I want to do is for people who are doing custom work, I still want to talk to you before we go. Right, we haven't had a chance to do that. Remember that next week you have to come up with your concept. So your concept is due on Friday, the Friday night. So when we talk about it during the day, I want to see your first level for your game. Right, and I want to see your concept, your pitch, basically to tell me what your game is about, right? And it could be based off of your assignment number 3 or some other assignment you've worked on together, if you're making it, or something else. Now, hopefully, are you working with anybody?
I'm in.
Alone? Oh, so it's always hard to work alone. So that's what's due next week. So anyone have any custom work you're gonna do a custom game?
One else I'd like to show you again.
Okay, so I'll show you. Anyone else have a custom game they're going to make other than a side scroller or something we've already done? Because side scroll is what we focused on this class, right? Because remember what you're thinking about making. If you're making something new, then please let me know about it. And you are? Do you have something to show me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll take a look at that stuff before we go. And how about Abel? Are you making a game for me? Because if you're not making a game for me, I don't know. I'm just happy that you're here. How about that? Right?
I made like a Java game.
A Java game? Yeah, that doesn't qualify. But thank you. JavaScript game.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay. Anyone else have anything else to add to this one? And then we'll stop. Then I'll kind of go around and see everybody's. So that's it for me.